I will now move the next speaker in this panel, Mr. Anirban Ghosh, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer, the renowned Mahindra Group of Industries in India. He has championed sustainability in a very big way, and he has established several businesses for the group in a more efficient and profitable way. And he's also a champion of new idea of sustainable business. हमने राजेंद्र सिंह जी से रूरल एनवायरनमेंट इम्प्रूवमेंट्स के बारे में सुना, उन्होंने जो भी इम्प्लीमेंट. दुर्गा शंकर मिश्रा जी ने बताया कि हाउ it is on a mega scale at the city level or the urban level. Integrating both, Anirban, I would like to ask you, how does Mahindra Group address the whole sustainability and the new path of sustainability in a world where climate change is a reality? So kindly tell us on the journey of the CSR and the sustainability and the new idea of sustainable business at Mahindra.
Thank you, Shankar. I'm going to stay with English because I excel at murdering the Hindi language when I speak it and the subject along with it.
Absolutely.
So English it shall be for a change. I'm sure Rajendra Singh ji knows that he is the Dronacharya in the water field. And there are many Eklavyas around the country. I happen to be one of them. Implementing the things that he has talked about and which he has taught everybody else at some villages in Madhya Pradesh on behalf of Mahindra and the Madhya Pradesh government, we learned that it was very easily possible to double per capita income in a period of 5 years' time. And this was by implementing all the learnings one gets from projects done by Rajendra Singh ji. You've heard from Mr. Durga Shankar Mishra about the increasing rate of urbanization in our country. We have very little idea about the pressure that puts on natural resources and the pressure it puts on ensuring that organizations work in a way which is far more friendly for the environment and far more efficient with natural resources, which we used to take for granted. Let me quickly share a few slides with you. It will just help me establish the points that I wish to establish on the subject of a new idea of sustainable business. So if there is to be a new idea of sustainable business, we must ask the question, did business not try to be sustainable earlier? Obviously, it's a rhetorical question, and there is an existing idea of what it takes to be sustainable. The things that you see on the slide are things we learn today through our education process, through our business schools, and all of them continue to be relevant. However, there are increasing pressures on corporations because of many developments in the environment and in society, some of which you've already heard in the previous two interventions. You can see the list of stimuli which are putting pressures on corporations, but it's not only these stimuli. They are in turn causing effects which are harmful for both business and society and are pushing businesses to work differently. So these are the pressures that we are facing, as a result of which there are two broad actions that businesses must take. First is to run a greener business, and second is to run new green businesses so people like you and me have climate-friendly, planet-friendly alternatives and solutions available so that if we wish to live with a lower carbon footprint, we will be able to do so. Let me get into the details of both greening the business and new green businesses. At the group, we have combined the two in the form of the Mahindra Sustainability Framework. Notice the definition, which is building enduring business which we've always wanted to do, but it's qualified now that while you're building enduring business, you must rejuvenate the environment and enable stakeholders to rise. And in the rest of the picture, you can see the areas of work that are covered by enduring business, rejuvenating the environment, and enabling stakeholders to rise. Let me take you through some environmental action. The first important thing to look at is to make organizations achieve carbon neutrality. Now, this includes very high levels of energy efficiency, some of which were mentioned by Mishra ji. In fact, I must tell you that in Mahindra and Mahindra, the largest business, and Tech Mahindra, all lighting is LED today. But while LED lighting and energy efficient air conditioning is something we've heard of, though I don't know whether you know that there are air conditioners today which are about 40% more efficient than a 5-star inverter air conditioner. And they are available in the country through Energy Efficiency Services Limited. In the Mahindra Group, we've already replaced upwards of 2,000 air conditioners with these very highly efficient, energy efficient air conditioners. There are also now very highly energy efficient motors. And actually in factories, the greatest amount of energy consumption happens because of motors. So today, almost 2,500 motors have been changed, and there will be more that will be changed in future. We would not have been able to do this 10 years ago because the solutions were not available, but they are available now. And it makes sense both from the perspective of business and from the perspective of society and the planet to adopt these new energy efficient, planet-friendly solutions that are available. As a result of these actions and adoption of renewable energy, the energy required to produce one vehicle in a Mahindra factory is half that of what we used to use about 4 or 5 years ago. So this is one step forward towards achieving carbon neutrality. Along with that, you have heard extensively about issues related to water. I don't know if you know that today, India is a water-stressed nation by the definitions of the world UN organizations. Now, if we are a water-stressed organization, which is becoming more and more urban, as Mishra ji told you, the stress on water is going to keep on increasing. The good news is that precipitation levels overall have not gone down, though the number of days on which we get rain are fewer and the number of days on which get heavier rain are more. This actually makes it more difficult to harness water naturally, and therefore efforts must be made. You see on the left a picture of the kind of work which Rajendra Singh ji has done extensively in Rajasthan and in other places. But these are the kinds of work across the country which have very high impact on ensuring that water is available for agriculture and for the use of people. Micro-irrigation is a technology which is critical to bring in water productivity of agriculture because it saves 30 to 40% of water for agriculture, which incidentally consumes about 80% of all the fresh water that we use. As a result of these community initiatives and water productivity actions taken within factories of Mahindra, there are factories today that do not take water from municipal corporations or tankers upwards of 200 days in the year. Our hope is we will be able to make all our factories water secure and try and take as many factories off the water grid as possible. You heard conversations on how landfills are expanding in the country, and they will continue to expand as urbanization increases, as you and I use disposable materials of various kinds, and we don't exactly keep our urban spaces clean. And all of this ends up in landfills. Many of them end up in water bodies. You may have heard of the Great Pacific Plastic Patch. Now, if we have to reverse all this pollution, we've got to figure out a way of first renaming what we call waste. So within within the Mahindra group, scrap yards are now being called value yards. And the conversation on waste is, we're looking at waste as a resource and not as something to throw away. As a result of which, the actions taken have led to 20 Mahindra locations being certified as zero waste to landfill. Nothing goes to landfill from these locations. And the goal is to make 95 of our significant locations, all our significant locations, which is about 95, become certified as zero waste to landfill. To do this, extensive work needs to be done to convert what was earlier waste into usable materials. And one example is here in front of you, that of converting paint sludge to casting primer and not just sending it off to landfill as per the rules of the CPCB. What you see on the right is a bag which is made from waste, a school bag. Today it is made only for poor children. This bag also has a folding table inside it, and this is used in village schools where children don't have tables to study on. So it's a combination of a bag, a table, and a water bottle. And there is no reason why this cannot become mainstream in the country with or without the table, because our children go to schools where there are wonderful tables, but they could use this bag, which is made from waste. We have a company in the south which manages water utilities and waste in Tirupur. They are now ensured that all the STP materials are now converted to fertilizer and treated water. So nothing, absolutely nothing goes to landfill or into water bodies anymore. It's a small unit, but there is no reason why this cannot spread right across the country. And if we were to convert sewage into fertilizer across the country, the savings we will make from imported fertilizer is in tens and thousands of crores, tens of thousands of crores. And surely there is value in creating value from what we completely disregard as being useful today. The organization is also has a program called Mahindra Haryali, and it started when we kind of recognized that deforestation was a problem in the country. Today we realize that these trees will play a very big part in sequestering carbon and helping take carbon dioxide out of the air, which is crucial for planetary survival and our comfortable living on the planet. The project today has 17 million trees, and the run rate is about 1 million trees per year. But doing all this alone is not enough. One has to take our suppliers along. So whatever programs I've mentioned to you are being implemented by our suppliers, some in very large number and some in smaller numbers. But the goal is to get them onto the same journey so that they are also able to get the benefits that we are able to get in Mahindra as a larger organization. These were all examples of greening the organization. Here are some new green businesses for the future presented in front of you. These are ones in which we in Mahindra have an investment. These are by no means the only green businesses of the future, but we will need many more such green businesses. So what you see here on the chart is cloud computing, which saves loads of emissions. There's renewable energy in the form of solar. There is also, of course, wind, green buildings, electric vehicles, responsible recycling of vehicles. You know, we have a lot of high emission vehicles. There is a conversation on bringing in a scrappage policy. If we want to reduce emissions in urban areas, what we do with new vehicles is important, but getting old high emission vehicles off the road is even more important. So I'm hoping we'll move in the right direction. So Mahindra is working with the government, has set up businesses so that these vehicles which need to be scrapped, again, don't end up in the rivers and nalas and various other places, but are responsibly recycled and material is recovered for reuse. You also see the picture of micro irrigation, and Mahindra Waste to Energy is a company that converts food waste into energy. About 60% of every landfill that we've talked about earlier is actually pure energy in the form of food waste, and it should not be there at all. Of course, another 24% is completely recyclable, and that should not be there at all. So Mr. Mishra's goal of reducing landfills in the country, 84% of it we can create value from. And I hope we do achieve these goals as quickly as possible. You put all of this together, you get the new idea of sustainable business, where all the old ideas continue to be relevant, but there are newer things to do, which we talked about in the course of this presentation, and you have here on the chart in front of you. So it's not as if we don't need a vision and purpose. It's not as if financial solvency no longer is important. It's not as if we must not look at investors. We must do all of that, differentiation, strategic marketing, all of it. But we must figure out low carbon, no carbon solutions. We must look at health and equity. We must work with the supply chain. We must adopt energy efficiency, renewable energy at scale, and go from take, make, use, dispose to circular economy and green labels. There are huge benefits to be gained for the corporation. There are plenty of financial variables. If you look at organizations that are coming out stronger from this COVID disruption, you will find many of them were very strong on ESG practices. In fact, those who are strong on ESG practices have all done well. And that's what investors also say in other conversations that I participate in. And not only does it give you much greater financial strength, it gets you better access to resources because youngsters love to work in companies like this. Society gives you a greater license to operate. Investors are happy to give you funds, and consumers, as they develop more and more interest in saving the planet, are happy to work with products of these companies. This is what makes organizations, or will make organizations, more resilient in the future that we are going to face in the next 30 or 40 years. And we should expect to see the new idea of sustainable business being practiced by more and more organizations, because it will then lead us to rise for good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It has been a very thrilling presentation and very inspiring, particularly for the future generation. We heard them earlier in this webinar that some of the youngsters are already taking to a full-time career, leaving aside the lucrative jobs when they come out of the institute, pursuing in the IT sectors and various other job-oriented sectors, but they have really stepped and taking on to the environment as their career. And I'm sure that after listening to you, they are going to be all the more inspired, and there are going to be more such entrepreneurs in the future that from our institute they are going to take after listening to Mishra ji with regards to pan-India impact on the urbanization, more from a technical, almost reaching to the very highest level of urbanization in the modern ways. And Anirban, I congratulate you and the Mahindra Group for having taken the complete gamut of the environment. Particularly know that there was so much green behind the businesses of Mahindra that has been taken on. It's been a very, very inspiring presentation. Anirban, particularly, I want with you, although you are not from our alumni, but you have a very close ties with Banaras. You are born in Banaras, and I think many of your family members have been graduated from the great institution university. So I just want one quick message from you, because there are a lot of budding engineers just come out of the institute, or also likely to come out with regards to, especially if they are in the corporates like you, a quick message or inspirational message on strategies to define market leadership or consumer insighting, competitive intelligence, or budding and sustaining brand, so that they look up at a corporate in a more career-oriented way.
Shankar, you had a session on startups just before this. The opportunities that exist in new solutions for the future are very high. We talked about circular economy. There are many materials that need to be processed differently so that they become useful. Each one of them presents a business opportunity. I remember about 40 years ago, some friends of mine who were clearly ahead of their time tried to make fly ash bricks. They couldn't even source fly ash. It wasn't given to them. Today, fly ash bricks have become very common in green buildings. And there are so many more materials that are required to make green buildings, greener materials. As Mishraji was mentioning, there is a lot of construction to be done. Let me put a number to it. Studies show that 70% of the buildings that we will need in 2050 in India are not built yet. And if these buildings are not green, we are actually going to put a huge burden of emissions on the earth. So some of us have a dream that everything we build in our country in future will be green. I know there is a little sustainability section that has gone into the in the bylaws of the building code, but we will need much more. And all of this will present business opportunities, startup opportunities for people coming out of our best technical institutes to not only make a life for themselves, but make a big difference in the life of others and make life of the planet a whole lot better.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anirban.